Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakruto Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Madhye Mahabharatam Advaita Vratavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayinim Ambatva manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramo Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha dhyana avasthita tadgatena manasa pashyanti yogina yasyantanna vidussura suraganaha devaya tasmai namaha. In this weekend Bhagavad Gita class, the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is almost being completed now. Very interesting. The last two verses, last verses are missing here. 5th chapter. But on the page 55 of this handout, we'll just review the last few verses of the 5th chapter. Read verse 23. Shaknoti haiva yas sodhum Prak sharira vimokshanat Kama krodhodbhavam vegam Sayuktasya sukhi naraha. Bhashyakara says, Ayam cha shreyo marga vipakshi kashtatamo dosha. For a mumukshu, for the one who is seeking moksha or freedom, liberation, for that person. This is the kashtatamo dosha. The worst kind of dosha or the defect or the obstacle to the achievement of one's goal, which is moksha. In fact, what is stated here is an enemy of anybody, even for the one who simply wants the day-to-day happiness in life. For them also, what is mentioned here is an enemy. But particularly so for the one who is seeking spiritual elevation leading to moksha, kama krodhodbhavam vegam. Lord Krishna says, the vega, the force or momentum, udbhavam, born out of kama and krodha. So this has been mentioned a number of times in the past, and Lord Krishna indicates it more than once, that vega or the internal force or the impulse, udbhava, that is born of kama, which means here desire, craving of any kind, krodha, the anger, also includes lobha, the greed. So vegam, the vega or the momentum or the force, the internal impulse that arises. That whenever trishna or the craving arises in the mind for anything, then there is an impulse, force of impulse within oneself which controls oneself. So here I mentioned three internal forces or enemies, which when they become powerful, they take over the person, makes the person helpless, and makes him or her do what they want them to do. Vegam, the vega, the momentum, the force born of kama, krodha, lobha, which are common things anyway. Kama here means the craving or a strong desire. A simple desire we may be able to overcome, but when we do not do something about the desire arising in the mind, dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu vajayate sangat sanjayate kama. Lord Krishna says kama or desire leading to craving arises on account of looking upon an object or a person or a thing as the source of happiness. What I want is happiness. And that is a very genuine desire for happiness. Except that, not knowing where that happiness is, a human being takes for granted that happiness is out there in some object or thing or being, and therefore the desire for happiness gets transformed into desire for a person or an object or a situation, desire for something else which is looked upon as a source of happiness. We are not interested in anything for their sake, really. We are interested only in happiness. But the words of Puja Swami, we are interested in please the self. What I want is to be happy. When I am happy, when I am pleased with myself. So basically my desire is for happy self, a pleased self, happiness. And therefore whatever I look upon as the object of happiness becomes an object of my desire. And stronger the dissatisfaction I feel within myself, stronger is going to be the desire for that, what I look upon as source of happiness. When the desire arises, if we pay attention to that, then it will be possible for us to perhaps neutralize that desire by viveka or discrimination. The look mind, what you are seeking is not out there. Happiness that is seeking is your own nature, not out there. And may be possible to be able to convince the mind. It may give up the desire. But if the desire gains a force beyond a certain point, then it will not listen to our reasoning. The mind does not listen to our reasoning, and it insists upon desiring, wanting that thing. Then that mind with this desire has gone beyond our control, meaning that we become controlled by that mind. And that is what Lord Krishna means here. Kama krodhodbhavam vegam. One is controlled by the impulse of kama, the craving. And of course, when the kama, the craving is not satisfied, is frustrated, then it gets transformed to krodha or anger. So anger is only a transformation of the desire. Kamesha, krodesha. Lord Krishna said earlier, what is kama or craving at this time becomes krodha or anger when it is frustrated. Unfortunately, when that kama is satisfied, then also it does not end. It results into lobha or greed once more. This kama is looked upon as the source of all the evil. The evident sign of the cause of our suffering. Originally is ignorance, but avidya, kama, ignorance of the self, causes this kama, which when unchecked becomes the cause of all our suffering. So Lord Krishna here praises this person. Prak sharira vimokshanat, until the vimokshanam departure from this body. Lord Krishna says that until the end, until the death, one should not be careless about this avega or impulse arising from kama krodha. Says, na vishrambhaniya haiti. We should not trust it. We should not be indifferent to that. We should be very particular in neutralizing this avega or the force of kama krodha, otherwise it will bring about a lot of damage. Here the example that Madhusudan Saraswati gives is that of a flooded river. Oh, the river that is flooded carries everything and anything in its flow, it sweeps away anything. Similarly also, when the mind becomes flooded by this river or the flood of this avega or impulse arising from kama krodha, then it takes away all the good things that we have. At that time, our education, culture, or nothing comes to help. Otherwise, I'm a very good person, wise person. When everything is going well, then I am a very nice person, except when I'm overcome by this kind of an impulse, then where that wisdom goes away. Where all my viveka, discrimination goes away, all my education goes away, all the culture, training, education, nothing comes to help me. And so Lord Krishna says, one who's able to, Shaknoti, is able to keep under check this impulse arising from kama and krodha, prak sharira vimokshanat, until the death. Meaning that we should not take for granted that now we have overcome and that this kama krodha is gone. We should not take it for granted. You should always be alert. Watch out for any signs of kama krodha in our mind. And when you see those signs, we should be alert in neutralizing them so that they do not become a cause of the distraction of the mind. The impulse does not overcome me. Sa yuktaha, sa sukhi naraha. So Lord Krishna praises this person who is able to control the impulse of kama krodha as a yukta, as a yogi. Sa sukhi nara, sa naraha, he alone is fit to be called a naraha or a human being. Madhusudan Saraswati says here that a person who allows to be controlled by the impulse of kama krodha is no different from an animal. Because animals also function according to their impulses only. They do whatever their mind says. This person also acts out of impulse is no different from them. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuram, that's all the impulses are there, and that determines his life. Therefore, a person who comes under the control of these impulses is not fit to be called a human being, at least at that time. Sanaraha, sayuktaha, he is a yogi. Here, yogi means a man of self-control. And therefore, for moksha, or for our not only spiritual growth, but even for our peace of mind, for our happiness, it is important that we should be able to keep under control these impulses of kama, krodha, lobha, etc. And that includes everything. Includes jealousy also, includes hatred, includes even the dislike for oneself, non-acceptance of oneself, self-non-acceptance, self-rejection, self-condemnation. All of these are negative forces. We should watch out for them and always be alert about neutralizing them. Otherwise, they will destroy the peace of mind and make me most miserable. So these are the reasons which make the person miserable. Sayuktaha, sasukhi naraha. And so ultimately this yoga, simple yoga of gaining a control over the mind or a mastery over the mind. Control is when the impulses arise and I am able to neutralize them. Mastery is when they do not arise. Meaning that if we are always alert in neutralizing these negative forces, a time will come when they will not arise. And the reason is there because kama, krodha, lobha, this is not the nature of the mind. Fortunately, this is not our nature. These are intruders. These are the demoniac tendencies which have found a place in our mind or heart only because we did not know that they were our enemies. And therefore, we allowed them to stay and then multiply. Once I recognized them as enemy, but Swami used to say that to become free from anger, first of all, one should realize that anger is my enemy. That anger brings about all the damage in me. And therefore, for doing anything, of course, we should have a, so becoming free from anger is a value, and that value should be valuable to us. Otherwise, even if it is value, we may not be able to put it into practice because it's not valuable. What does it matter, Swamiji? Without anger also, with anger, what's the problem? Usually we find that when we get angry, we have our own way, we can intimidate other people, get what we want to get done, and then anger seems a useful tool, but it is not. And so when thus we recognize the damage that anger does to us, then there is of course an incentive to become free from that. But in course of time, it is possible that one can become totally free from anger. Because anger is not the nature of the mind or inherent to the mind, it is something incidental. It is an intruder. And therefore, it is possible to drive it away from our mind, provided we have value of doing that and we are alert and vigilant about doing that. And the reward is great. The reward of doing that is very great. So next verse tells us, so Sahadev, we do not have the first subsequent verses here. This chapter has 29 verses. Huh? Oh, it's coming? Okay, good. Otherwise that fellow will keep it with himself, you know. Okay. Yeah. Let us read the next verse, 24. Yontas sukhontara ramaha tathantar jyotirevayah sayogi Brahman Nirvanam Brahma bhuto dhigacchate. Although what this verse describes a wise person. A wise person who abides in the wisdom. Who abides in the wisdom or the knowledge of one's own self. The description of the wise person. Something that each one of us is desiring to be. Okay, so yeah, here they are. Then it's all right. Lord Krishna, whenever comes an opportunity, does not fail to describe a wise person. And from that description we should know that it is basically our description. What it is that we are seeking to be, and what it is that we can be, and what it is that we have to be. Vedanta would teach that unless we attain this nature of ours, you will not call it state, but because it is our nature. Call it state if you want, unless we attain this state, and state can be the state of mind, the Atma, the self, does not have state, but then basically because of the habitual identification of the mind, as the mind is, so I am, therefore one who attains that state. This verse is Sayogi Brahman Nirvanam Brahma Bhutah Adhigacchati. That yogi Brahman Nirvanam Adhigacchati gains the freedom which is Brahman Nirvanam. In fact, the word Nirvana is interestingly used here more than once in this chapter and the subsequent verses. So people wonder whether Bhagavad Gita came after Buddhism, because the word Nirvana is primarily used by the Buddhists. Nirvana means extinction in one way. That is when a lamp flame is extinguished. That's called Nirvana. Or when all the fuel burns out, then no flame remains. Similarly also, when all the inner disturbing forces, they all get burnt out, then the mind gains complete tranquility or freedom. Then mind does not even remain the mind just because one is Atma. So then Nirvana also means here the absorption or abidance in the self. So for Vedantin, Nirvana means the Nirvriti also means Ananda. So Nirvana also means Ananda or complete satisfaction. On one hand, Nirvana means the cessation of all the disturbance or distraction or unhappiness. But cessation of all the dukkha or unhappiness is accompanied with the complete satisfaction or ananda. Because these are not looked upon as different. Normally, sukha prapti, dukkha nivritti, attainment of sukha and cessation of dukkha is said to the goal. But dukkha nivritti, the elimination of cessation of dukkha automatically accompanies this sukha prapti, attainment of sukha. They are not two different things. So nirvanam can be understood as cessation of all the sorrow, or can also be understood as the attainment of all the satisfaction or happiness, which is moksha. So, Nirvana, Brahman Nirvanam. So, Brahmani Nirvanam, Brahmani Nirvratihi. Bhashyakara explains Brahman Nirvanam. Brahmani Nirvanam. Brahmani Nirvratim. One attains the nirvratim ananda of Brahman. And Brahman means ananda of the self. Which means one attains one's true nature. Not attains, but then one abides in one's true nature. What is meant by attaining the true nature? Abiding the true nature. Why don't I attain myself? The nirvrati or ananda or cessation or total peace is my nature really. But this kama, krodha, all of these things that we described earlier, arising from ignorance, they deprive me of the benefit of the true nature of myself. So even though peace is my nature, these extraneous forces like kama, krodha, lobha, they create like a storm in my mind and therefore deprive me of that peace which is my nature. And therefore, elimination of those is so important. Therefore, Brahman Nirvana means Nirvana, the cessation of all the disturbance, attainment of complete satisfaction, or perfect peace, you can call it, is what one attains, meaning what? One discovers that to be my nature. It is not that one day you discover that. As these impulses of kama, krodha, etc. subside, we keep discovering the inner peace by itself. So understand that it is not that peace has to be attained, it is that these impulses which deny the peace which is present, as these impulses or obstacles are removed, the peace which is my nature becomes experienced by me, or I discover that as myself. So understand that the moksha is not one day happening. The cessation of dukkha is not, it progressively happens. And leading up to a complete cessation of dukkha. Because dukkha is not our nature, dukkha is a product of ignorance, and therefore it can be removed completely. So Brahman Nirvana adhigacchati. This wise person adhigacchati attains Brahman Nirvana, the total cessation of dukkha, which means the experience or attainment of total satisfaction. The wise person adhigacchati attains. Who is he? Sayogi. So Lord Krishna uses the word yogi, jnani, bhakta, etc. in the same sense. Because a jnani also is a yogi and is also a bhakta. Who is the yogi? One who enjoys a mastery over oneself. One who abides in oneself. Who is a jnani? One who knows oneself. Who is a bhakta? One who worships the self. So worshipping the self, knowing the self, abiding in the self, all of them ultimately culminate into one only. Therefore, a wise person can be called yogi. Yogi is the one who enjoys total mastery over oneself. Who has his mind, yogi will say that mind has ceased to be there. But Vedanta is one who has a total mastery over the mind. And mastery over the mind can be there provided these impulses of kama, krodha have completely ceased to be there. And when that is there, then one's true nature becomes manifest automatically, which is peace or happiness. And that is what I see myself as peace, of the nature of peace or happiness. And therefore, jnanam, the knowledge, or yoga, they are not two different things. So Sayogi, Lord Krishna calls this wise person a yogi. Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta, of the nature of Brahma. Brahma, one who has become Brahma. So a yogi or a wise person who has become Brahma. Who has become? One who is not Brahman has become Brahman. If I am not Brahman by nature, I cannot become something which is not my nature. The basic rule is that one cannot ever become free from one's nature, because that thing will not remain. Heat is the nature of fire, and fire can never be without heat, because without heat the fire will not remain fire, understand? So really becoming cannot be there. A thing cannot become different from what it is. Therefore, it's not that I become Brahman. Brahman, which is my nature, is what I discover to be myself. But you can say Brahma Bhutah, one who has become Brahma, because Brahma, one who is the nature of Brahman. Even Upanishad says, Sayo hai tat paramam Brahma Veda, Brahmaya bhavati. Who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. Like the 10th man who knows himself as 10th man becomes 10th man. Brahma Bhutah adhigacchati. Becoming Brahma, one attains the total peace, cessation of all the dukkha, or attainment of total peace or satisfaction is what one attains. As a result, how is it? Ya antas sukha, antararamaha, antarjyotihi. Antas sukha, one whose sukha or happiness comes from within. So, but when we gain sukha, when an ignorant person gets happiness, Swamiji, does it come from outside? Sukha never comes from outside. Happiness never comes from outside. Although it feels as though it is coming from ice cream or some such object. Because in absence of that, my mind was craving. And when that object of craving comes, then the craving subsides. And therefore my mind becomes happy by the absence of craving. So, one thing is for sure that happiness only is the nature of self because self alone is consciousness, conscious being. This chapter itself said, Isam sparshaja bhogaha dukkha evate. All the happiness coming from the contact with sense objects are nothing but source of unhappiness. In short, for a wise person or otherwise person, only Atma is the source of happiness. Then why does this verse say, Yah antas sukha, one whose sukha or happiness comes from within? Why did it say that? That is because he knows so, that's all. The ignorant person also gets his happiness from within, but thinks that it has come from without. Whereas the wise person recognizes that happiness is the only nature of satyam, jnanam, anantam or vijnanam, anandam, brahman. What is vijnanam, what is consciousness is anandam. That will be very, very clear, therefore, one whose happiness comes from within. Within means what? With reference to the body, we call it without and within. Within means from the mind, means from the self. Yeah, antas sukha. We are all antas sukha only, but we think that it comes from outside. Here, one abides in the happiness which is his own nature. Antara ramaha. Aramaha. Aram means to play, to sport. Ram means krida in the sense of sporting. One who sports with himself. You see, this is another source of happiness. One source of happiness is enjoying an object of pleasure. Another source of happiness is playing. Playing a sport, for example, that I enjoy. Except that playing always requires someone other than me also. Even playing cards also requires, you can play cards yourself. These days you can do anything yourself. And I see while flying, traveling, I can see people. The computer is one hand, he does something, that thing, that does something. So I guess, but still you require a computer. At least there is a notion that there is someone there who is also playing the card, and it must be pretty intelligent. So I guess it has its own strategy in there, built in there. So when I play, then it has a strategy and plays in some unpredictable manner and challenging me. I guess I have not done it, but I believe that's how it must be. But that's another kind of joy that we get by playing. Yontas sukhontara arama. Arama, one whose joy of playing also comes, he plays with himself. Meaning that this wise person gets the joy of krida or play, except that he plays with himself. How can you play with yourself? This Lord Krishna keeps describing in more than one places. But then, inasmuch as whatever joy one gains by playing also comes from one's own self. Yastvaratmara syat atmatruptasya manavah atmanyevacha santushtaha. So rati, trupti, santushti, etc. Tathantar jyotireva, one whose jyoti, one whose knowledge also comes from within, because Atma is the nature of knowledge, Sukha, Atma, nature of happiness, and Arama, Atma, of the nature of peace or quietude. Therefore, whatever an otherwise person thinks that he gains from outside, the wise person abides in his own self. Meaning that for gaining happiness, now he does not need any object of happiness. For gaining happiness, he doesn't need anybody else. See, here when we are left alone, and a person becomes restless. We are not only alone, but then there is a loneliness. Alone is one thing. I was talking to one of our devotees a day or two ago. So, Swamiji, I am alone but not lonely. Very happy to hear that. I am alone but not lonely. Alone is not a problem, lonely is a problem. That's why you need someone always to support, to talk to. And these days, of course, you don't need someone in terms of a person. Your social media is quite adequate to provide that someone with whom I can communicate, with which I can even play. The children, what is this child doing? Swami, it is playing. His cell phone, there are all kinds of things available. All games are available, sports are available. Why children? As I said, I see people also playing cards and various things with their cell phones or computers. In short, all of these only display a need on my part. An inner dissatisfaction makes me a needy person. Therefore, I need some objects to entertain me. I need some things to give me pleasure. I need things to keep me company, which is quite all right. But all of these are the manifestation of needs. And one becomes totally free from need. That is the reward that one gains by the knowledge, or even by simple antakarana shuddhi or purification of mind. As our mind becomes free from that kama krodha, all of these things we get satisfaction from ourselves, we can be with ourselves and happy with ourselves. We can be at peace with ourselves. As the mind becomes sattvic, then there is an inner peace. Otherwise, constant battle is going on inside. Constant battle of myself with myself is going on. And constant inner battle is there with my own self. Why? Because I just do not like myself. I am not happy with myself. Some of you would say, you should love yourself. How can I love myself? You look at myself, such a restless entity is in there. How can I love myself? But as the mind becomes sattvic, automatically love and liking for the self arises. Because after all, I see myself only in the mirror of my mind. The mind is rajas, full of rajas, then it shows me a very restless person. Therefore I am not happy with myself. As the mind becomes sattvic, it shows a quiet, tranquil, happy person. Then I like myself. And therefore the way to like myself is, the mirror of the mind should be made plain, straight, clear. If the mirror is distorted, mirror is spotty, then that is how my reflection also will appear. So, Antahkarana Shuddhi, purification of mind, means the mirror of my mind is just made plain, reflecting. When I see my reflection very clearly. And therefore, primary first value is to make our mind sattvic. Kama krododbhavam vegam. The kama, krodha, which represent rajas and tamas, the value for getting rid of them. Very often we think that they are our friends and therefore we use them to our advantage, but they are great enemies. Therefore, antasukha, antararamaha, antarjyotirevasa, sayogi, brahma nirvana, brahma bhutaha. I come closer and closer to myself. Gain more and more satisfaction in myself, become closer and closer to myself. Closeness of relationship, closeness of friendship. Unfortunately, I am divorced from my own self. And therefore the need always to look for nothing wrong in the relationship, but coming from an internal need here, as I discover myself to be what I want to be, I become closer and closer to myself. That closeness culminates into total oneness. Sayogi, Brahma Nirvana, Brahma Bhutaha, Adhigacchati. And therefore, now the verse 25. Good. Okay, now we can read that. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rusheha Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha Sarva Bhuta Hiterataha. See, Brahma Nirvanam, this expression is repeated by Lord Krishna. Verse 24 also said Brahma Nirvanam. This verse 25 says Brahma Nirvanam, the two words Brahma Nirvanam Rushaya, Brahma Nirvanam Rushaya. So I'm very fond of this expression, Brahma Nirvanam. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam. Oh, I raise that question for you whether Bhagavad Gita came first or Buddhism came first. Is Lord Krishna using the word Nirvanam is used by Buddha or what? But all evidence suggests that the Bhagavad Gita in fact came before Buddhism. And because some people read this word Nirvana and then say that Bhagavad Gita is after Buddhism. Because Buddhism uses the word Nirvana. But the Bhagavad Gita came before Buddhism, which is what the scholars they tell us. It came perhaps 6th or 7th century before Christ. Buddha was born in the 6th century BC. So, in short, Nirvana is a word of coming from Vedanta rather than Buddhism. Not that it matters too much, but to some people it may matter. Labhante Brahman Nirvanam Rushaya. In these verses, Lord Krishna also is describing, in a way, the preparation required for knowledge and moksha. So sadhanam, the means that are required for moksha are in a way described here also. Rushaya kshina kalmasha. Kalmasha means an impurity, can be also called papa or sin. Kshina kalmasha, those whose mind has become free from kalmasha or impurity. So impurity is the result of papa, and so ragadvesha. Kalmasha or impurity means ragadvesha. So meaning that some papa karma which we have performed in the past. Because when we act out of impulse like ragadvesha, then further impulses are created. So what we did in the past comes to us in the present to haunt us. And so what ragadvesha or impurity we find in our mind now, in present, is the result of the karma that we would have performed in the past, whatever it was. So this is the task that we have. We find ourselves having kalmasha. Kalmasha means impurity. Ragadvesha, the impulses, kama krodha. Kshina kalmasha, and therefore those who have. Now this is what requires an effort. This kalmasha or impurity or distract or ragadvesha impulses will not go away on their own. You must do something in order to drive them away. And the way the Vedanta teaches is by pratipaksha bhavana. The anger goes by compassion. Kama or desire goes by viveka or discrimination. Greed goes by satisfaction. The way to deal with the greed is by contentment with what I have. Because greed means mind wants more than what it has, is not satisfied with what it has, therefore contentment with what one has. Anger is because of intolerance, I cannot tolerate something or somebody. And therefore tolerance, acceptance, compassion, large-heartedness. Let them be what they are, give them the freedom. That's how Ishvara has made them, and therefore call it compassion, kshama, forgiveness, large-heartedness, accommodation. And kama, desire, as we said, is the result of aviveka. Seeing what is not there, seeing happiness where it is not, and not seeing happiness where it is in the self, and therefore reminding the mind. Here mind, desire for happiness is an illegitimate desire. Not every desire. There can be desire which is genuine, meaning that because we have body, then we have this hunger and thirst and this. So those desires can be justified. But desire for happiness is not a legitimate desire, because happy person desires happiness. So reminding the mind. Here mind, when a desire arises, ask the mind, what do you expect to accomplish by fulfilling this desire? I want to be a wealthy person. So then what? Then I'll be something. Then what? I'll be happy. So you want it for happiness. But that cannot be attained from anything else. So desire for happiness can be neutralized by viveka. I don't say that if you're hungry then you do viveka, no, I'm complete, I'm full, etc. That doesn't happen, because body is not full. Atma is complete. Body is not complete. So body may have its own needs, and that those legitimate needs we should try to fulfill. Most of the needs are the needs of the mind, which are all imagined. So kshina kalmashaha, those who are living an intelligent life, recognizing that this kalmasha, these impurities of raga, dvesha, kama, they're impurities. Therefore, the primary purpose of living life is to get rid of these impurities. Lord Krishna calls that life karma yoga, meaning by deliberately entertaining the attitudes which are opposed to this raga dveshas. We just said the attitude that opposed to the kama is the viveka, attitude opposed to krodha is accommodation, compassion, forgiveness, attitude opposed to greed is contentment. And not only just in the mind, but this must be brought into action. That is what karma yoga is. Karma yoga is attitude which is in mind should be brought into action. Then it becomes firm. Merely an attitude in the mind may be like writing in the water and it may disappear. What we want is it should be written on the stone. So when that attitude is expressed in action, then it becomes firm, and then also it cannot become firm just by doing it again and again. We have to do that. So karma yoga means again and again the attitudes of compassion. May my action represent, be based on compassion. My action based on viveka. My action based on contentment. Action based on, giving, contributing. So these attitudes which are the means of neutralizing my negative ragadveshas, this attitude must become the basis of my life. They must manifest through my karma. Then my life will be called karma yoga. Kshina kalmashaha, thus by a deliberate life of the right attitude and right actions, which is the result of my understanding about the scheme of things. Even if moksha is too far from me, what I want is happiness. And mind cannot be happy as long as these ragadveshas are there. They are my enemies. Tayorna vasamagachet tau yasya paripantino. They are your enemies, and therefore always alert to get rid of them. Kshina kalmashaha. Thus, the rishis, they are called rushaya. Rushaya means sukshma darshina. So thus more my mind becomes free from these impurities, subtler and more sensitive it becomes. A Rishi is a very sensitive person. Because knowing the self requires to be the most sensitive. A sensitive person can be sensitive to the feelings of others, to what is around nature. Ultimately, we should be sensitive to the fact that what is Ishvara. There's a mind that has cultivated a sensitivity that can appreciate what is Ishvara, what is beautiful, what is in order. What is right now, a sentence becomes then a reality for me as I become more and more sensitive. And that sensitivity culminates into my even recognizing I am Brahman, or what is Brahman. Kshina kalmashaha yatatmanaha, those who are constantly striving. In the beginning with karma yoga, then of course with shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. Another thing Lord Krishna says, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata in this verse. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. Those who are devoted to the well-being of all the beings. Those who wish well of everybody. Now, desiring well of people whom we like is one thing, but then desiring well-being of those who we dislike, or more than that, desiring well-being of those who dislike us. Why should someone dislike you, Swamiji? That's my prarabdha, Just your prarabdha, sometimes. We may have done something also for people to dislike us. Sometimes you need not do anything. Swami used to say, just we are here and that's why people dislike you. Why? Just because you are there. Can be. It's all prarabdha, karma phala. But then sarva includes everybody. Now that's a tall order. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. And Bhashyakara gives a very beautiful explanation of this. Ahimsakaha ityartha. This is a real ahimsaka or real non-violent person. Non-violence, we think that is only absence of violence. But then when I wish ill of somebody, it is violence. When I do not wish well of somebody, then also it is violence. The real non-violence will be when in my heart there is the well-being of everybody. It is not right now. Right now a few people's well-being, but slowly if it expands to include the well-being of anybody. All along Lord Krishna is Sarva Bhuta. Adveshta Sarva Bhuta. One who is free from hatred for anybody. But even that is not enough. It's even better. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Those people who are committed to the well-being of all the beings. That's a tall order, but that is what is required to be happy, I tell you. Not only is it required for moksha, for our own peace of mind and happiness, we need this. Well-being, prayer for it. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. Sarve means everybody. Even those who I do not like, or those who do not like me, even for them also, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Sarvesham Bhutanam Hite Anukulya Rataha. Anukulyam. Being anukula, favorable to everybody. As I said, this is a tall order, but this is what is required in order to be successful in life, in order to be happy in life. Then, Chinnadvaidaha yatatmanaha labhante Brahman Nirvanam. Free from all dvaida, all chinnadvaidaha, all, meaning those who are free from all sense of doubts or dualities, labhante Brahma Nirvanam, they attain this Brahma Nirvanam, or they attain Nirvanam, as I said earlier, cessation of all the dukkha, which means this complete satisfaction they attain. This is what Vedanta presents before us as a goal of life. Vedanta does not present attainment of something else as a goal of life. Vedanta simply presents the attainment of our own self, or owning up our own self as the goal of life, which is possible for everybody. If attaining some loka or some realm such as heaven was a goal, then we cannot say that everybody can attain, because that requires an effort which everybody may not be able to do. But here the effort that is required is the self-purification and self-knowledge, which is the birthright of everybody, except that we just have to cultivate those qualities. These verses I discussed, although these are already discussed earlier, before we come to the last three verses which remain to be done, so we'll take a break for half an hour, come back here and then discuss the remaining verses of this chapter to complete the fifth chapter. Om Sahana Vavadu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. On the page 56, read the verse 26. Kamakrodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito Brahman Nirvanam Vartate Viditatmananda. Further describing again the wise people, and in that process also describing the sadhana means also required for attaining that wisdom. Kamakrodha viyuktanam, already discussed here, viyuktanam, those who are devoid of kamakrodha, kshina kalmashaha, those who attenuated or eliminated their kalmasha or impurities. So Lord Krishna again and again repeats this, kamakrodha viyuktanam. Yatinam yatachetasam, the yatis, those who are striving. Yatnashilanam, those whose nature it is to strive. And this is what the Yoga Shastra emphasizes also. Therefore, successful accomplishment of any goal, one should be striving constantly with commitment, with devotion, all the time. And if the goal is worthwhile, then this is what happens. That moksha just does not remain a word. But when moksha is understood with reference to myself, it is not a goal or objective to be achieved, an objective that is something different from myself to be achieved. It is for my own self, for my own happiness and peace of mind. If you understand moksha simply as happiness and peace of mind, that would be quite adequate. When you hear the word moksha, then we may get intimidated. Maybe that is not something that is achievable for me, it's not for me. But we may recognize that there is no choice. Moksha simply means unconditional freedom. And I must recognize that that is what I am constantly striving to attain, freedom or peace or happiness. So moksha is not something that is alien to me, because that is very much woven into my life. The desire for that unconditional freedom is what I am born with, which is what I am constantly struggling to attain. Struggling to attain, having taken for granted that it is something different from me. You can say struggling to become. As this, what is called a moksha, as Vedanta explains, is something most practical and unavoidable. Meaning that I cannot do without happiness. I cannot do without peace of mind. And happiness means moksha. Peace of mind means moksha. You can add one adjective there, unconditional happiness. So then all conditions will go. Right now, happiness that we gain is due to conditions, nimitta, because of conditions or situations or causes other than ourselves. Unconditional happiness, uncaused happiness, put it this way. A happiness that is not caused. And is not caused, what cannot need, what is it? Something that is not caused, which is already there. What is not there has to be created, for which there must be cause and effect. But uncaused happiness, uncaused peace, uncaused freedom. Although I am constantly resorting to various causes for happiness and peace, but how nice would it be if that happiness and peace was uncaused, effortless? That's called abidance. So that effortless abidance, peace or happiness is what is constantly there in our mind as what I am seeking. So moksha is the only thing that I want in life. The more clear it becomes, more valuable it will become to me. The reason why many things in our life have found a value, whether it's wealth or power or fame or anything else, is only because we have not discovered that what I am seeking is simple happiness, undiluted happiness. And that is already my nature. So that is the way that the mind will stop running out. That is why Sage Yajnavalkya told Maitreyi, his wife, Atmastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Hey Maitreyi, whatever is dear to you or me or to anyone is because of the self is dear to you. So this fundamental reality of our life is simply revealed by that statement, that whatever I like or whatever I love is because I love the pleased self. We need to focus our attention and spend time on this. Then it becomes clear to the mind. More clear it becomes, more focused I am going to be. It is lack of that clarity that all that matters to me is the pleased self and nothing else. And pleased self is already my nature. All I need to do is to remove whatever obstacles there are that deprives me of that pleased self. So life is more a process of giving up the obstacles rather than acquiring something not acquired. All these things should become clear. Yatinam, yatachetasam. Then our Puja Swami says that then life gains a proper purpose. It gains a right direction, a worthwhile purpose. And then based on that understanding, what we do becomes meaningful to us. again Lord Krishna says, Kama Krodha Viyuktanam, that Kama Krodha, those who are free, Viyukta. Yukta, joined. Vyukta, unconnected. And it's possible to become unconnected with Kama Krodha because they are not our nature. They are alien. They are only incidental. They are intruders. Avito Brahman Nirvanam Vartate Viditatmananda. This Viditatmanam, those who have known their own self, Avitaha Brahman Nirvanam Vartate. In 3 verses, in each verse, Lord Krishna has used this expression, Brahman Nirvana. All these people, these yatis, those who are striving, the aspirants, Brahman Nirvana Vartate. Avitaha. While here means Jivan Mukta. And after the body drops off, there is no departure. We should not say after departure the wise person remains free. There is no departure. Tasya prana utkramanti iheva smavi. They say that the prana, there is no departure for the wise person. Anyway, therefore, Brahma Nirvanam, the moksha, is a reality here as well as hereafter, if you want to use that expression, hereafter. With this, the topic of the 5th chapter, the karma sannyasa yoga, sannyasa or renunciation is the subject matter of the 5th chapter. Not the whole Gita anyway, but still. Here Lord Krishna described sannyasa in a primary sense. What is primary sense? Primary sannyasa in primary sense called Vidvat sannyasa. The sannyasa, the renunciation, that is attained as a result of the knowledge that I am a sannyasi. With samyak jnasa sannyasa, and traditionally sannyasa means giving up all karma, all the duties. But really speaking, all the duties can be given up in a primary sense when the entity that is performing the duty no more remains, meaning the karta does not remain, the doer does not remain. Therefore, real sannyasa is not merely giving up the duties or action, but that is by will. But becoming free from the sense of doership, that's the real sannyasa. When the doer is not there, the doing is no more there. And so, the sannyasa or the renunciation, the wise Lord Krishna is teaching. And interestingly, that's all he is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. There is a tall order, but that's all Lord Krishna is teaching Arjuna. Katasun akatasunse nanushochandi panditaha. Here Arjuna, Panditaha, wise people are free from grief when wise people have become this kind of sannyasis. And it is a goal that is attainable by everybody. For the simple reason that sannyasa happens to be our nature. So the words of Puja Swami, owning up myself, that is what is required. Because of ignorance, I am as though disowning myself. So knowledge allows me to own up myself. Avito Brahman Nirvanam Vartate Viditatmanam. So call it Brahman Nirvanam, call it moksha, call it sannyasa. That is the main topic of this 5th chapter. Begin primarily with 13th verse and then continued up to the verse 26. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi Navadvare puredehi neva kurvan karayan. Not doing anything nor making anybody do anything. On one hand, Lord Krishna always prescribes karma. On the other hand, he teaches a state which is totally free from karma. Meaning that Lord Krishna tells us that performance of karma is in no way opposed to being free from karma. Because freedom from karma in the ultimate sense, freedom from karma to begin with is a willful action that I give up all the karma, all the duties. Ultimately, freedom from karma is recognizing that I am actionless. Therefore, a wise person who knows his self, karmanyabhi pravrittopi neva kinchit karodi. This person is praised in the 4th chapter, saying that even though he seems to be busy or doing things in every way, he still does not do anything. So not doing anything means there is no burden of doing anything, you understand? The action is performed at the level of body, at the level of speech, even at the level of mind. And for us also, action is not a problem. It is the burden, the stress and the strain and the conflicts, etc. that action brings as the problem. We all want to retire from action. There is premature retirement, all kinds of retirement. Looking forward to retirement, then I can become free from this burden. Because I have taken for granted that it is action that is causing burden to me. It is not so much the action, but the kartrutvam, sense of doership. That I am doing this, I am performing this action. Then comes the responsibility for the action, the outcome of the action, and that brings its accompanying stresses. Sukhamaste vashi, Lord Krishna says, the wise person dwells happily. From his own standpoint, neither doing anything nor making anybody do. Here Arjuna is and Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna makes Arjuna do, and Arjuna has to do. But that is only at the Vyavaharik level. Lord Krishna ultimately wants Arjuna to recognize that you are not doing anything in spite of doing. It is non-duality in spite of duality, inaction in spite of action. Inaction does not merely mean absence of action. It is the discovery that Atma is always, I am always free from action. So really sannyasa means nothing but the self-knowledge. Now the next 3 verses, as the commentators explained to us, are an introduction to the 6th chapter. And it is the style of these scriptures that very often they give us the overview of what is going to follow. Sometimes there is called sutra and bhashya, samasa and vyasa. You say something briefly, in a nutshell I say, you say some nutshell and then you expand that idea. Sometimes having described something in detail, it will again told in nutshell. So sometimes you describe in detail and not so that again it all gets, properly organized in your mind. But usually it is the style that you declare what the topic is going to be and then you talk on that. So this is also done here in the last 3 verses, not 3 but the penultimate 2 verses. Verse 27 and verse 28, these 2 verses in brief describe the dhyana yoga, or the yoga of meditation. So yoga is the means of knowledge. And yoga now is in 2 stages, karma yoga and Dhyana Yoga. Karma Yoga, the yoga of attitude while performing action. Dhyana Yoga means withdrawing action and focusing the mind on the object of meditation, which here is the self. Although what Lord Krishna teaches in the next chapter can apply to any kind of meditation about anything. In the context of Vedanta, it is meditation about the self, is called Nididhyasana. So that is going to be the subject matter of the 6th chapter, which is commonly called Dhyana Yoga. So then Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. So between Karma Yoga and Jnana, there is a step in between called Dhyana, which Bhashyakara says is, so there is one, that is the Bahiranga Sadhanam, other is the Antaranga Sadhanam. Sadhana means. The exterior means and the interior approximate means. So Karma Yoga means to knowledge, a little bit removed from knowledge. Dhyana Yoga is more approximate means, closer to knowledge. And so the Dhyana Yoga, meditation upon the self also is important. And Vedanta says that Atma vare drashtavya, shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasitavya, maitreyi. Atma should be drashtavya, seen, known as an immediate reality of ourself. How do you do that? Shrotavya. May you subject yourself to the Shravanam, the listening about Atma from the teacher. Mantavya. So Shrotravya, Acharyatah, Shastratah, from Acharya, from the teacher, based on the Shastra, the scripture. Mantavya, then you should use your reasoning to make that knowledge clear of any doubts or any vagueness. So by Shravanam Manam you get clear knowledge. And Nididhyasanam, there is this habitual error of identifying with the body. So if any kind of habit remains, overcome that habitual error also. So Shravan, Nididhyasana. The Dhyana Yoga is a means of Nididhyasana. It is called the Antaranga Sadhana, approximate means for knowledge. Asa idanim Dhyana Yogam Samyak Darshanasya Antarangam. So Lord Krishna has this in mind. Arjuna, now I am going to describe to you Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of meditation. Samyak Darshana Antaranga Sadhana, which is the proximate means for abidance in knowledge. Vistarena Vakshami Arjuna, I am going to describe to you in detail. And what I am going to describe to you in detail, in the next chapter, the chapters are all, I don't know if Lord Krishna had any chapters in mind, but anyway, the whole discourse is divided into 18 chapters. This is all done by editors. At the end, then you add, this statement, Itish, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Suva, etc. So therefore, here there is a division of the chapter. And therefore, I am going to describe to you in detail the Dhyana Yoga, which is the proximate means for abidance in knowledge. Tasya Sutrasthaniyan Shlokan. The verses that are Sutrasthaniyan, like the aphorisms, like pity statements, meaning that in nutshell, Lord Krishna will describe what he will describe in detail in the next chapter. So even the three shlokas are there, but 2 shlokas, 27 and 28, describe the Dhyana Yoga, and last verse 29 describes mainly What is the result of dhyana yoga? What is it that you know, or what is it you meditate upon? What's that you know? That's what the verse 29 describes. So let us read the verses 27 and 28 together. Sparshan krutva bahirbahyaan Chakshuschaivantare bhruvoh Pranapano samau krutva Nasabhyantaracharino Yatendriyamano buddhi Munirmokshaparayanaha Vigatecha bhayakrodha Yassada mukta eva saha. So last quarter of the second verse said, Yas sada mukta eva saha. Yah saha sada mukta eva. Yeah, one who is like this. So what the 1.5 verses describe? The one who is like this. What is described in the verse 27 and the first 3 quarters, that 1 and 3 quarters of verse 28. So if he sada muktaha, he is ever free, ever liberated. Again, very interesting, the second line of verse 28 says, Vigatecha bhayakrodha. Seems to come back to the same thing again and again. Vigata ichha bhayakrodha. The one who is from ichha, no, vichha, bhaya and krodha. We talked about it. Meaning the one should become free from desire by reminding the mind that, hey mind, what you are seeking is already you. You are desiring something, as I say, if it is desire merely for the basic needs of the body, then they are understandable. But desire for happiness, etc., are not legitimate because that desire can never be fulfilled. There are 2 kinds of desires. Desire is of what I don't have, which is millions of things I don't have. Or at least hunger and thirst and stuff like that, heat and protection, heat, cold. So that may be called a desire for something that I don't have. Another kind of desire. So desire for what I don't have and desire for what I think I don't have. Like my glasses which are tucked away on the head and I am searching for them. And I don't even know that the glasses are already with me and I am searching for them. Somebody points out to me, Swami, what are you looking for? What are you, I'm looking for my glasses. Hey, they are right there on your head. Then I discover them. So this desire for my glasses is desire for what I think I don't. Desire always for what I do not have. But there are things that I really do not have. I'm hungry, I don't have food, therefore that is a genuine desire. I'm thirsty, desire for water is a genuine desire. I'm feeling cold, desire to wrap my body with a shawl, we call it genuine desire. Headache, want to get rid of it, genuine desire. That is the desire for what I do not have, which is quite in order. But then desire for happiness falls in the category of desire for what I think I do not have. Like those glasses which I have and I don't know that I have. Therefore I have desire for glasses, which is desire for what I think I do not have. So when Lord Krishna's Ichcha, we get Ichcha, it is that desire. Not desire to appease hunger, not desire to quench thirst, etc. Lord Krishna or Vedanta has no issue with those kind of needs. But the needs which are for things that I think I don't have, and that is the need for happiness or peace or even love. The things that I have because they are my nature. Anyway, yoga means Lord Krishna says that you start giving out these things rather than asking for them. So give out happiness. Make somebody happy. Don't ask for love. Give love. That's the only way of invoking from me what is already there. How unfortunate it is that all the time I am seeking something which is already my nature. And that is why so much disappointment in life. All disappointments and frustrations come from trying to fulfill desire for something which I already have and for I think I don't have. So Vigata Ichcha, that Ichcha is this kind of Ichcha. Arjuna, recognize that happiness or peace that you are seeking is your own nature. Nobody can fulfill that. The world can try to fulfill the desire. As they fulfill, I will ask for more and a point will come when it cannot be fulfilled. Vigata Ichcha, Bhaya, then Bhaya, Krodha, we always say Ichcha doesn't get fulfilled and I get frustrated, I get angry. And the desire also causes fear. Because I know that there is no certainty that my desire will be fulfilled. There is always an apprehension of what will happen. Because I don't know what will happen next moment. And so uncertainty causes anxiety and fear. Anyway, so the root of all of this is basically Ichcha. What kind of Ichcha? Desire for what I think I do not have. Vigata Ichcha, Bhaya, Krodha. Therefore, Viveka is in order all the time. Our mind also can attain peace provided there is Viveka. Of course, peace can be attained by other means such as pranayama, etc., which is all right, but ultimately, Vedantin seeks to accomplish by Viveka everything that yoga can accomplish. Although Lord Krishna here does prescribe pranayama and other things as certainly as aids, but primarily because the habitual distraction the mind has requires these things. So now, showing broadly the preparation for dhyana or meditation, Lord Krishna says in the verse 27, Sparshan krutva bahir bahyan. A very favorite statement of Puja Swami. But he would say, Bahyan sparshan bahir krutva. That is how sparshan krutva bahir bahyan is the order of words here. Puja Swami would say, Bahyan sparshan bahir krutva. Sparsha means an object. Sparsha means a touch. So what is touch is called sparsha, and an object of senses, and anything else. Bahyan, all the objects are outside. What is all? Everything is outside. Outside, first can we say outside the body? So what is outside the body? Keep it outside. But Swami, the whole world is outside, but we bring it inside by our attachment and aversion. So raga dveshas are like the holes in the border through which the enemies enter, or animals enter. You have a nice garden here and then you have fencing and then if there are openings there, that is where the animals find way. And so also these ragadveshas are those which find their way through the opening of the ragadvesha. I mean the objects find their way to come in my mind through ragadvesha. So what is outside occupies my mind and prevents me from thinking of what I want to think. Meditation means thinking of what I want to think. Sajatiya vritti, I want to maintain a flow of desirable thoughts in my mind. Make it simple as that. The mind will enjoy peace and happiness if it is endowed with desirable flow of thoughts. What is desirable thought? Thoughts of love, compassion, kindness. So I want my mind to be kind. I want my mind to be loving, compassionate. That's what enables me to enjoy that peace and happiness of the mind. And that will lead to the peace and happiness of myself. The first is to make the mind in harmony with the self. If I want to meditate upon any object of meditation, that the mind first should gain harmony with what I want to meditate upon. Well, Swami would say that you cannot attain love through the corridor of hatred. You cannot attain peace through the corridor of restlessness. If Atma is the nature of peace and happiness and love, then mind should relatively become peaceful, happy, loving. So I want my mind to think of loving thoughts, good thoughts. I want compassion to be in my mind. But these fellows, the ragadveshas, deprive me, they don't allow me to maintain that thought flow. Sparshan krutva bahirbahyan. Therefore, all the things that are out there, which are non-self, in Vedantic terms, anything that is not self will be called bahya, outside. See, these thoughts of kindness or compassion are very compatible to nature of self. And they can lead me to abidance in myself. But then habitually I have these attachment and aversions for, that's what have been cultivated by unintelligent living. And they are the gateways through which these objects or disturbances enter my mind. Sparshan krutva bahirbahyan. So then Vedanta says, recognize that the only thing that enables or allows the external things, situations, people to enter my mind are my attachments and aversions. I hate something, that will occupy my mind. I cannot do without something, that will also occupy my mind. Attachment means I cannot do without something. Aversion means I cannot stand something. Why is it so? Why can I not do without something? Because I think that I am not adequate. I am a needy person. Why do I hate something? Because I think that they come in the way of my fulfilling the needs. So this is how ragadveshas are built up. Lord Krishna says, first make your mind quiet by neutralizing ragadveshas, by the pratipaksha bhavana, by the contrary attitudes. If the mind of anger arises in the mind, if the thought of anger arises, neutralize it by the thought of compassion. If thought of greed arises, neutralize it by the thought of contentment, etc. So first make the mind peaceful by pratipaksha bhavana. Because mind habitually will think what it has been thinking and we have to make an effort to make it quiet. sparshan krutva bahirbahyan. Then the next step will come. Now to make the mind focused, Lord Krishna shows a technique here. Chakshuscha hi eva antare bhroho antare. Chakshu, eyes between the two eyebrows. So one way of, the different ways, but one way that Lord Krishna describes here is to focus your vision between the eyebrows, like that. Meaning that eyes become steady. The movement of the eyes usually is accompanied by, or it reflects the movement of the thought. When a person is restless, then you can see the eyes also become restless. So this is the other way approach. They're trying to make the mind steady by steadying the eyes. How do you make the eyes steady? By focusing them somewhere. You focus them on something outside, then that outside is constantly changing, and therefore your focus also will keep on changing. Here the Tikakara says that if you close your eyes, then you are likely to fall asleep. If you keep your eyes open, then it will keep on perceiving what is outside there, which is moving, changing, therefore also your mind will be distracted. So here the eyes are as though half open, sort of. They are focused in between the eyebrows. In the 6th chapter, Lord Krishna will say, Nasa Grantha, to focus at the tip of the nose. There is another method stated there. But basically it's called dhyana, concentration of the mind. So that the mind becomes steady here. Chakshuscha proho antare krutva. Then pranapana, then next comes pranayama. Pranapano samukrutva nasa abhyantara charino. Nasa abhyantara charino. Those that are moving in the nose up and down, outside, out and in the nose, meaning exhalation and inhalation. Samau kurtva, let the inhalation, exhalation be equal. This can be translated as kumbhaka, meaning stop inhalation and exhalation, but that may be difficult. But slow down the inhalation, exhalation. But Swami used to show a technique for slowing down the mind, by slowing down the breathing, by giving some preoccupation to the mind. Mind is a habit of thinking of millions of things. So we cannot all of a sudden make the mind stop thinking. So give the mind some occupation. What's the occupation? The mental massage. Let the mind massage, mentally massage your body. Meaning that you first start your attention with the toe of the right foot, let us say. Slowly then, as you focus there and felt that toe, you'll find the toe is relaxed. And slowly moves the attention, not this thinking attention. Attention you move towards the right leg. Toes, fingers, ankle, knees, etc. Progressively bring all the way up to the right side. So as the mind attention progresses, that part of the body gets relaxed also. As the body gets relaxed also, the prana gets relaxed. And the mind also gets relaxed. And then reverse that process from the top of the head all the way on the left side. How long will it take? Whatever it takes. That can be the meditation. The whole session can be spent there. Relaxation of the mind. The body is relaxed, the breathing also becomes slow, and the mind also becomes slow. Then you can give mind a little subtler occupation of watching the breath. Just attention on the tip of the nose and watching the breath. Going out, coming in. Going out, coming in. Coming in breath a little cooler. Going out breath a little warmer. So now mind becomes more focused. The third thing you do is to introduce a mantra in the mind and repeat that mentally. So progressively, in 6th chapter we said, Shanai Shanai Uparamet. Slowly and slowly you must make your mind inward. Atma samstam manakritva na kinchidapi chintet. When the mind has completely focused upon the self, that is the end of the thinking. Pranapano samokritva nasabhyantara. This way we can make the pranapana slow, and therefore the thinking also becomes very slow and relaxed. Yatendriya mano buddhi, thus one is attained the mastery over the manas, mind, and the buddhi, intellect. Munihi, now he becomes munihi, meaning manashila, contemplative. Moksha parayana, parayana, devoted to moksha. The only goal that I have is praptasya praptihi. The mind has now become very tranquil in that what is sought is the moksha praptasya praptihi. So there is no ichcha. Ichcha doesn't have a scope when mind understands what I am seeking is my own self. Vikata ichcha bhe krodha yasada mukta eva saha. So moksha parayana, thus one who is totally devoted to moksha. Yasada, he says, Lord Krishna says, he mukta is essentially liberated. Of course, liberation comes ultimately by knowledge, but this state of mind, tam yogamidamanyante sthiram indriya dharanam apramatta. Kathopanishad describes this. Yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasasaha. The 5 organs of perception along with the mind also, they become settled, abiding. Then one becomes totally alert. And that's when one sees the nature of the self. And what is to be known with that mind? The verse 29 describes that. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram surudam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim rachyate. The 4th quarter says, jnatva mam shantim rachyate. Ruchyati, one attains shantim, peace, meaning unconditional peace or unconditional happiness, unconditional tranquility, what Lord Krishna described as Brahman Nirvana. Ruchyati attains, does not attain, but this is what it becomes. Jnatva mam, knowing my true nature, knowing the nature of the self. So the mind is now totally focused upon the self, and now you have the benefit of Shravanam Mananam, and that is how you see this fact. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Lord Krishna says, who am I? Yajna tapasam bhoktaram. Bhokta means enjoyer or experiencer. Yajnanam bhoktaram, tapasam bhoktaram. 2 kinds of bhoktas or experiencers are described here. Yajna means offering the ahuti to devatas. So when we offer ahutis or oblations to devatas, who are those who enjoy that? Devatas enjoy that. Lord Krishna, I enjoy the ahutis that you offer because I am in the form of those devatas. So I, who is the form of those devatas, it can be Indra, Varuna, whoever the devata is to whom the ahut is offered. I am the enjoyer of the offerings. Tapasam, of the austerities. The person who performs the ahuti is a person who observes austerity. So austerity is performed by the one who is performing yajna, and the benefit goes to the devata to whom ahuti is made. Lord Krishna says, I am in both the forms. The performer of yajna also I am, and the beneficiary also I am. The Jivatma also I am, and Ishvara also I am. So I, who is the self of the Karta, the performer of yajna, I am the self of the Bhokta, the enjoyer of the ahuti. I am the self of all. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Maheshwaram, Mahantam Ishwaram, the great Lord of all the worlds, being the very self of all. Not that the Lord has to really use his bows and arrows and swords and stuff like that to control anything. Even though we depict our devatas as possessing various weapons to show how he is almighty and all-pervasive. But if Ishvara had to use his weapons to control, then some effort would be involved in controlling. I have to make sure, I have to intimidate you to make sure that you don't do anything wrong. Can you imagine Ishvara trying to, all the billions of galaxies, trying to control all of them? What would happen? He cannot sleep then. Here Ishvara is depicted as lying down in his serpent bed, in his yoga nidra, not doing anything. That can be only when by his presence alone everything is automatically controlled. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that very self, by being the very self I am the controller. Surdam Sarabhutanam. Surdam means well-wisher, I am the benefactor, the well-wisher of all the beings. This is a very important statement that Ishvara is Sarabhutanam, Surud, meaning he is a well-wisher of all the beings. This should give us a great consolation. Because very often things happen in our life where we feel that there is injustice, Swamiji. Ishvara is cruel. He is not fair. Unfairness, injustice, cruelty is inflicted upon me. Very often we feel victimized in our life. And who is the villain? Ishvara is the villain. So it is understandable that when things happen in our life which are painful, then we may feel that way. Unfortunately, this thinking alienates us from Ishvara. We start blaming Ishvara, feeling he is not fair, he is not just. The only refuge that we have in our life, that itself in this manner denied by us. Therefore, Suhridam Sarabhutanam, he is the well-wisher of all. But Swami, why does he bring pain in my life? This well-wisher Ishvara, why has he created pain? Why has he created failure, death, pain? Why is it so? Because everything has a purpose to serve. Pain also has a purpose to serve in your life. Pain is meant to draw our attention to something which is against the order. When I eat against the order of the body, there is pain in the body. So pain is meant to draw my attention to something, some violation of order. I haven't done anything, Swamiji, in my life to suffer this. I don't know. We give him benefit of doubt, he is my well-wisher. So through this pain also, he intends to help me to grow in some way. So pain comes to help me grow. Pleasure comes to encourage me, pain comes to help me grow. This is the attitude that we can have when Lord Krishna claims that I am well-wisher. And as Pujya Swamiji keeps on repeating, this is pramana. Pramana means this is a valid means of knowledge. Means the Vishra of Shraddha in the words. When he says well-wisher, he is well-wisher. With this Shraddha in the scripture or in the words of Lord Krishna, I can overcome the all opposition that is in my mind. My mind comes up with various kinds of oppositions and various kinds of fights and battles. I can overcome them only with the Shraddha in these words. That Ishvara is Suhrut. He is benevolent. He is not malevolent. He is not actually my enemy. He has nothing to gain by punishing me. Ishvara cannot punish. He can only bless. Except that I am able to recognize the nature of his blessing. It may be blessing in disguise. All of these things are not easy, but that is the only way we can overcome the disappointments in our life and proceed with our life. Suhridam sarabhutaram jnatvam. This is the nature of the self. What is the nature of Ishvara? Is the nature of the self. Jnatvam. The self, in this manner, Shanti Mrutyati, one attains the eternal peace or unconditional peace, which is called moksha. So what is called Brahman Nirvana earlier is called Shantim. And this word Shanti also is very, favorite of Lord Krishna here. He uses that word Shanti also. We'll see in the 6th verse, 6th chapter. Earlier also to say it. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatprasayatendriya jnanam dva param shantim ashirena digacchati, etc. Shanti means moksha here. So the last verse tells us the nature of the Ishvara, nature of the self. Jnatva mam, knowing which, that means that all along we have to recognize this reality. In the situations which may be like turmoil, there also, jnatva mam, that this is how one should know me. Then only there will be immediately there is peace. So with this, Lord Krishna concludes the 5th chapter, or we are concluding the 5th chapter also, so that the next Acharya has the opportunity to begin with the next chapter, the fresh chapter. So let us read the last Sankalpa Vakya. Om Tatsat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Panchamodhyaya Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyah Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchah. Hari Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।